Hi all, this is Allmighty and welcome to this video. So, as I previously stated, I decided to show a couple of games more from the St Petersburg Tournament of 1914, so not just the Capablanca games of that tournament. And this is why I'm showing you actually this game, a game that was actually under some controversial spotlight because it was considered by many to be one of the greatest games of that tournament, and most of the players said that this game should have won the Brilliancy Prize, but actually it was once again Capablanca's game that won the Brilliancy Prize. I will of course show you that game as well, but it is only fair to show you this game and make you to judge for yourself which one is better. So yeah, Nimzowitsch, I have already covered a couple of games from him on this channel, but Siegbert is a new face to this channel. Probably most of you have heard about Tarrasch, if not by his games or by his chess rules or chess traps. You have definitely heard about the Tarrasch opening lines. For example, we will also see one today after playing d4, and also there is a Tarrasch opening variation when you play the French defense. As I mentioned, there is also a couple of chess traps that Siegbert himself created in the Ruy Lopez, which are pretty famous. Maybe I'll cover them in some other videos. And also you may have heard about the Tarrasch rule, which clearly states that rooks should be placed behind the passed pawns. So Siegbert Tarrasch was considered to be one of the strongest players of that part, in that time. So end of 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. So definitely one of the contenders to actually win this tournament. And let's see what does he have in store for Nimzowitsch here. They start with d4 and Tarrasch responds with d5. Knight to f3 and c5. You see that signature Tarrasch move c5 when your opponent plays d4. He didn't like that d4 move and he always wanted to challenge it. c4 and now e6. We have e3 and knight to f6. So for the first moment they are playing symmetrically, and now bishop to d3. One thing that will definitely mark this game is that both of the players will be reluctant to actually capture anything in the center and create something until only later in the game. While it is possible, this game is played positionally, something that just fitted the style of both Nimzowitsch and Tarrasch. Knight to c6, pressuring in the center, and now castles. Development of the bishop, b3, I'm wanting to put the bishop here, since this Tarrasch move allows always pawn captures on c5, bishop to b2 is a possibility, and then this bishop can be very strong on this diagonal. Castles and bishop to b2, as stated. b6, so yeah, Tarrasch wants to do the same thing since the c4 was played, and now we have knight from b to d2. Bishop to b7, rook to c1, and queen to e7. You could say that both of the players have finished the development, and now it's time to maybe create some plan and go for the middle game. First, Nimzowitsch is the one who actually captures a pawn. So he first captures on d5, and after pawn captures on d5, he does it with an idea to play knight to h4. And knight to h4, clearly you want to jump to f5 since the bishop was played on b7 and attack the queen and the bishop. So g6 stopping it, and now the knight back. The knight has done his duty. Now he can just quite simply return back, because at some point there are some jumps with the knight which would come with a discovered attack to the knight, so it's much better to bring it back. And after this, you definitely want to capture on c5 to have, as previously stated, right in the opening, this very strong bishop on this diagonal. Rook from a to d8, and now pawn captures on c5. Pawn captures on c5 and bishop to b5. And Nimzowitsch's idea is to capture actually this knight and then create a very strong attack on this diagonal, because knight is one of the pieces who can actually support a push of d4 or maybe even jump to e5 to stop these ideas of this bishop on this diagonal. Instead of bishop to b5, maybe even queen to e2 could have been played, rook to e1, but okay, this is also a very nice move. Knight to e4, and now a strange move, immediately capturing on c6. Here you could have played probably queen to e2 to just connect the rooks and played rook to d1 to just go quite simply for this d5 move, for example, after f5, and then continue with the attack. But Nimzowitsch is very eager to proceed into this game, and he plays bishop to c6. Bishop to c6 and now queen to c2. Now the capture will ensue, and then queen to c3. Probably there will be a very strong attack here. Knight captures on d2, not allowing it, and now knight captures on d2. If queen captures on d2, then d4 is played, and it is very difficult to go about this position because bishop will capture on f3, and then the attack of this bishop and the queen on this side of the board will be very strong. You would have to play something like queen to e2, but after rook from f to e8, the pressure on this pawn is too great. So probably you will lose at least one pawn, but at least you're not getting checkmated. If you go and capture, pawn captures on d4, then bishop to f3, pawn captures on f3, and queen to h4. You see there's a threat of checkmate, you have to move the rook, and after queen to h2 you will run off the king, and yeah, the rook will come on the e file. It will be a problem for the king. So this is why knight to d2 is a better move, and now we have still d4. Tarrasch wants to open up this diagonals for these two bishops, and these two bishops are just eyeing those pawns. And here what should have been played is something like rook from f to e1, just defending this pawn, then after rook to f to e8, from f to e8 the battle continues. But for some reason Nimzowitsch didn't see any problem with actually capturing this pawn. But actually this is a terrible blunder, which leads to a very strong attack because of which many players thought that this game should actually win the brilliancy prize. You see, the main problem of capturing from the e pawn to d4 is the opening up of the e file, which later will be used with some checkmating ideas. But let's see how Tarrasch approached this position. First, he captured on h2 with check. Yeah, Nimzowitsch simply captured, but what happens if king to h1? Then queen comes to h4, the threat is bishop to g3, queen to h2, checkmate, so we have to move the rook, but still, bishop to g3, king to g1, queen to h2, king to f1, queen to g2 captures, king runs, queen captures again, king has to go somewhere here, but you get the idea, checkmate will follow soon. Because yeah, the king cannot go on many more squares. If he goes to d1, then you capture queen to e1, and this is checkmate. So because of that, here Nimzowitsch captures on h2. We have queen to h4 check, king to g1, and bishop captures on g2. Once again, queen to h2, queen to h1 checkmate is the most probable. Yeah, it is the biggest threat. So you have to deal with it. In the game, Nimzowitsch played f3, but actually he could have also played king to g2. And when I say from now on, actually he could have played every of these moves will lead to a loss for white, because the attack is just such a destructive attack and you cannot defend against it. Even king to g2 runs into queen to g4, and after king to h2 you play rook to d5. And the threat is rook to h5 checkmate, so you have to give up the queen, queen to c5, rook to h5, queen captures, and after king to g2 you play the queen here, you capture this knight, and you're up in material, and still the king is wide open. You can include the other rook into the game. Black is simply better in this game. So this is why probably Nimzowitsch didn't capture the bishop. He played f3 so that he can run away. But now comes the problem of the e file, because black plays rook from f to e8, not allowing the king to actually escape when there will be some checks. Knight to e4, stopping those ideas. So now if you play king to g2, then there is this rook to e2 check. You can block with the rook, for example, but then queen captures, king to h1, and this is checkmate. So here, because of those ideas, we see knight to e4, and now the queen is on this second rank providing support. But actually, this is also a problem for white, because after this we saw queen to h1 check, king to f2, and now bishop captures on f1. If you capture with the rook, there is this queen to h2, and when the king moves, you lose the queen. So the problem of knight to e4 move was that it opened up the attack to the queen with those threats. So because of this, After bishop captures on e1, it wasn't captured, but Nimzowitsch played d5. Now we have f5 attacking the knight, and of course if the knight moves, the e file will be open, so we have queen to c3. Finally, Nimzowitsch played, this is the idea of d5. He played it so that he can play queen to c3 and threaten checkmate himself. But this leads to queen to g2 check, king to e3, and rook captures on e4 with check. Pawn captures on e4, and actually here Tarrasch could have had checkmate in 3, but he decided to complicate a little bit for himself, playing f4. But if you want, you can pause the video and try to find the solution yourself. Just keep in mind that the king here is doesn't have a lot of squares to go to. You have this bishop eyeing here, you have this pawn eyeing here, and what you need to push him in the corner. So you do it as follows: queen to g3, king can only go to d2, queen to f2, king can only go to d1, and then queen to e2 is checkmate. But okay, instead of that, f4 was played, but this isn't a problem. White will still be checkmated. King captures on f4, and now rook to f8 check. King goes to e5. If he goes back, then same ideas with the queen. Queen to h2 check. You can block with the queen, but black can simply capture. So here we saw king to e6, rook to e8 check, and now if you go to f6, then queen to f4 is checkmate. And if you go to d7, like it was played in the game, then a simple bishop to b5 is checkmate. So a beautiful attack by Tarrasch here, a beautiful sacrifices of both of the bishop pair, a very nice attack with the bishops, and also something to keep in mind for your future games, because that attack without removing the defenders, the knight defenders in front of the king, it can leave you really vulnerable. Sorry. So this is pretty much it for this video. Hope you enjoyed this game that many considered to be the game that should have won the Brilliancy Prize. But of course, as I've stated at the beginning of the video, I'm going to show you the Capablanca game as well, and then you can judge which game did you like better. That being said, I would like to thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.